probably no better time to talk about the economic travails in our country than today with all that's happening. Let's take a look at the national debt. When you go home, go to your computer and you can look up the national debt, and you'll see that as of 18 September, it was $9.6 trillion. That's 9 with 12 numbers after it. Now we have a U.S. population of 304 million. Each citizen's share of this monstrous debt, therefore, is $31,641. The admitted national debt climbs at approximately $1.79 billion per day. And this is even before this bailout. Interest alone on the debt for fiscal year 2007 soaked the American people for $430 billion. That's just interest on the accumulated debt. So that's about $1,400 for every man, woman, and child in our country. But the actual indebtedness of the U.S. government, adding in unfunded obligations into the future, Social Security, Medicare, it approaches at least $50 trillion and maybe as much as $100 trillion. Now, this is what we're leaving for our children, our grandchildren. And I think the slogan that the Education Department has, "No child left behind," ought to be applied to the debt. So what do we see? We see this huge indebtedness. No nation in the history of mankind has ever been as heavily in debt as ours. And our leaders have numerous foreign aid programs where they give away money. What are some of the realities that we face today? Well, it costs more every time I go to the supermarket. Everybody says that. My pay raise doesn't even cover rising costs. 2 incomes barely keep pace with rising costs. College tuition is out of sight. Good-paying jobs are harder than ever to find. And of course, there's a woeful lack of understanding. There are people who today say, "You mean there's no backing for the dollar?" And then people say, "What is the Federal Reserve and how does it affect me?" And then I hear people say, "We need the Fed because somebody has to manage the currency." Ladies and gentlemen, that is one of the greatest fallacies of all. If the currency is a commodity like gold or silver, it does not have to be managed. The free marketplace will manage it. Money should be a commodity, valuable to all people, and there's no management needed. And so people who say to me, "If you get rid of the Fed, what are you going to replace it with?" I say, well, if you have cancer, do you want to replace it with pneumonia and 2 broken legs? Right? No, you don't. So, during the lifetime of many Americans, the United States has gone from the greatest creditor nation on earth with the most respected currency to the greatest debtor nation with an increasingly shunned currency. Now that's happened in my lifetime and in the lifetime of many of you here. Now here we have $2. Each says $1. One is a paper dollar and the other is a silver dollar. The paper dollar will get you 1 quart of gasoline. The silver dollar will get you as much as 12 quarts of gasoline. But they both say $1. Isn't a dollar anymore? The answer is no, it's not. A silver dollar is worth 12 times and maybe more than the paper dollar. And of course, that is changing dramatically as the paper dollar continues to lose its value. Its cause is inflation. Now, let's talk about inflation. It is not rising prices. Don't blame the grocer. Don't blame the gas station attendant, the landlord, or the employer who can't supply a pay raise. Yes, inflation is an increase in the quantity of currency. So then you blame the counterfeiter. You blame the government or the government's partner, the Federal Reserve, for flooding the nation with currency. That's what inflation really is. Rising price is the effect of inflation. Inflation is an increase in the quantity. And you can say that about anything. If a fellow discovered a beach and instead of sand on the beach, it had diamonds, and he started to spread the diamonds around the community, the value of diamonds would do what? It would go down. Right? And who would dare give one to his fiancée? Any substance whatsoever. Increase the quantity, and you will see the value go down. Now I contend, and I'll probably say this again before we finish, If you give anybody the power to inflate, he will. Just as simple as that. The temptation to inflate will overcome whatever good intentions might have been had by anybody. If you give anybody the power to inflate, he will. Now you go to a dictionary today and you probably will not get a decent definition. They will equate it with rising prices. They will say it's rising prices and so on. Back in 1957, this dictionary had it correct. It said inflation, an increase in the amount of currency in circulation resulting in a relatively sharp and sudden fall in its value, and rise in prices. Note, resulting in rise in prices. So the dictionaries even have been changed. There's two aspects of inflation that are very important. The first is thievery. I have a statement here from John Maynard Keynes, a famous British socialist. Keynes did write a book in 1920, and in it he hit the nail on the head. He said, by a continuous process of inflation, governments can confiscate, secretly and unobserved, an important part of the wealth of their citizens. How does that happen? Well, let's give an example. We'll say a man in 1945 inherited $10,000. He could have bought a home in 1945 for his $10,000. He didn't. He put it in the bottom drawer. And then 50 years later, he took it out of the bottom drawer and he found out he couldn't even put a down payment on a home. What happened to the value of his money? It was confiscated secretly and unobserved by the government and its partner, the Federal Reserve. Now, all kinds of examples can be given for that. But there is an example of what happens. Secretly and unobserved, this man's money continued to lose value.